Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a peaceful and gentle moment today. Take a slow breath and allow yourself to slow down for a moment. In today's world, everything moves very quickly. People want fast results, fast success, fast improvement, and language learning is often treated the same way. Speak fluently in 30 days. Sound like a native speaker quickly. Become confident immediately. But sometimes, this constant pressure to improve faster makes learning feel emotionally exhausting. And maybe you have experienced this feeling too. The feeling that you are too slow. The feeling that other people are improving faster than you. The feeling that you should already be fluent by now. And over time, this pressure quietly removes the joy from learning itself. But there is something important many people eventually realize. Some of the deepest learning happens slowly, quietly, naturally over time. And this creates an important question. What if learning slowly is not failure? What if slow learning contains its own kind of beauty? Because at the beginning, many learners approach English with urgency. They try to memorize everything quickly. They force themselves to improve faster. They compare themselves constantly to others. And because of this, learning begins feeling emotionally heavy. But over time, some learners begin changing their relationship with English itself. Instead of fighting the process constantly, they begin living with the language more gently, and something beautiful begins happening. English slowly becomes familiar, not through pressure, but through repeated experience. Another important idea is emotional patience. Language learning is not only intellectual, it is emotional too. The mind needs time to become comfortable with unfamiliar sounds, expressions, and rhythms. And comfort cannot always be rushed. Another key point is quiet repetition. Many learners underestimate the power of small repeated experiences. Listening every day, reading a little consistently, hearing familiar expressions again and again. These quiet repetitions slowly build deep familiarity inside the mind. Another important idea is releasing comparison. In the age of social media, many learners constantly compare themselves to others. Someone younger, someone faster, someone more fluent. And comparison creates emotional tension. But peaceful learners understand something important. Language learning is deeply personal. Everyone grows at different speeds, and slow growth is still growth. Let me share a simple example. Two learners begin studying English together. The first learner becomes obsessed with fast progress. They pressure themselves constantly. They study aggressively, but emotionally, they become exhausted and discouraged. The second learner improves more slowly, but they continue gently and consistently. They enjoy stories, conversations, small moments of understanding. And over time, English becomes emotionally familiar to them, not through force, but through steady experience. Another example. A learner listens to English every day while walking quietly in the evening. At first, they understand very little. Progress feels invisible. But months later, something surprising happens. Familiar phrases begin appearing naturally in the mind. Emotional tone becomes easier to understand. The language begins feeling softer and more recognizable. And this transformation happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. Another important idea is trust in gradual change. Many meaningful transformations in life happen slowly enough that we barely notice them at first. Language learning is often like this too. The brain changes little by little. Comfort grows little by little. Confidence grows little by little. And eventually, small changes become something much deeper. Another key point is emotional sustainability. Fast improvement driven by pressure often creates burnout. But gentle learning creates stability, and stable learning can continue for years peacefully. Another important idea is enjoying the process itself. Some learners become so focused on fluency that they forget to enjoy learning. But peaceful learners often discover beauty inside the process itself. A new phrase, a meaningful conversation, a sentence suddenly understood without translation. These small moments quietly become part of the journey. At this point, you may begin noticing something clearly. Learning slowly is not always weakness. Sometimes, slow learning creates deeper emotional connection with the language itself. But there is still something important we need to understand. Why does slow learning often create stronger emotional comfort over time? Why do gentle learners sometimes build deeper fluency than rushed learners? And how can learning slowly change not only your English, but also your relationship with yourself? And this is where the story begins to go deeper. From pressured learning to peaceful growth. Now that we understand that slow learning can create deeper emotional connection with the language, we can begin to explore why peaceful growth often becomes more sustainable and meaningful over time. The goal is not to avoid improvement. The goal is to remove unnecessary emotional pressure, so learning can continue naturally for a long time. The first step is accepting that language learning is gradual by nature. Many learners expect visible progress every day, but real fluency often develops invisibly for long periods of time. The brain absorbs patterns quietly. Familiarity grows slowly. Understanding deepens little by little. And because this process is gradual, progress may not always feel dramatic. But quiet progress is still progress. The second step is emotional gentleness toward yourself. Many learners become emotionally harsh while studying English. They criticize every mistake, compare themselves constantly, feel disappointed when improvement feels slow. But peaceful learners often develop a different relationship with growth. They allow themselves to learn imperfectly, slowly, humanly, and this emotional gentleness protects motivation deeply. The third step is consistency over intensity. Some learners study with extreme intensity for short periods, then become emotionally exhausted. But slow learners often continue steadily for years. A little listening every day, a little reading consistently, small repeated experiences, and over time, these quiet repetitions create remarkable familiarity. The fourth step is learning through life instead of pressure. At first, many learners separate English from real life completely. English exists only during study time, but peaceful learners slowly allow English into ordinary moments. Music, stories, podcasts during walks, simple thoughts during daily life. And because of this, English begins feeling emotionally natural instead of forced. Let me share a simple example. Two learners begin studying English together. The first learner pressures themselves constantly. They demand rapid improvement. Every mistake feels emotionally heavy. And eventually, learning becomes exhausting. The second learner studies more gently, not perfectly, not aggressively, but consistently. They enjoy small moments of understanding. They repeat familiar content peacefully. And over time, English slowly becomes emotionally comfortable for them, not through pressure, but through steady familiarity. Another example, a learner listens to the same English podcast every evening while resting. At first, they understand very little. Progress feels invisible. But months later, something quietly changes. Familiar phrases become instantly recognizable. Emotional tone feels clearer. Listening becomes relaxing instead of stressful. And this transformation happened slowly enough that they barely noticed it while it was happening. Another important idea is removing the obsession with speed. Modern culture often teaches people that faster improvement is always better, but emotional comfort rarely develops through rushing. The mind relaxes through familiarity repeated over time, and this emotional relaxation creates deeper fluency. Another key point is trust in the process itself. Peaceful learners stop demanding immediate results constantly. Instead, they trust that repeated exposure and gentle consistency will slowly change the brain naturally. And this trust reduces emotional tension deeply. The fifth step is emotional sustainability. Learning driven only by pressure often becomes unstable, but learning connected to peace, curiosity, and gentle repetition can continue much longer. And long-term continuity matters enormously in language learning. The sixth step is discovering beauty inside small progress. Peaceful learners often notice quiet moments others ignore. Understanding one new sentence naturally, recognizing emotional tone immediately, feeling less nervous during conversation. These small moments may seem insignificant, but together, they slowly create transformation. The seventh step is emotional coexistence with imperfection. Slow learners understand something important. You do not need perfect English to continue growing beautifully. Mistakes are not proof of failure. They are part of familiarity developing gradually. And this understanding creates emotional peace. The eighth step is allowing learning to become part of life itself. At first, English may feel like a separate task, but peaceful learners slowly integrate the language into ordinary life naturally. And because of this, learning stops feeling emotionally heavy. It begins feeling more human, more natural. Another important idea is patience with invisible growth. Some of the deepest changes in language learning happen quietly beneath the surface for a long time, until one day, you suddenly realize something has become easier naturally. Another key point is emotional safety. The brain learns more deeply when the mind feels calm enough to stay open and curious. And peaceful learning creates this emotional safety. Another important idea is trust in time itself. Fluency often grows like familiarity between close friends. Slowly, naturally, repeatedly over time. At this point, you may begin noticing something different. Learning slowly is not falling behind. Sometimes, it is the very thing that allows deeper and more peaceful fluency to grow. But there is still one important part left. What happens emotionally? When learners finally stop fighting their own pace completely, what does it truly feel like? To grow peacefully without constant comparison and pressure? And how can slow learning quietly transform not only your English, but also your relationship with growth itself? And this is where the story moves forward. From rushing growth to peaceful transformation. So now we come to the final part of this story. What happens emotionally? When learners finally stop fighting their own pace? Because this transformation is not only about language learning. It is also about the relationship we have with ourselves. Many people spend years believing they are behind other learners, behind expectations, behind the speed they think they should have. And because of this, learning becomes emotionally painful. Every mistake feels heavier. Every slow moment feels discouraging. Every comparison creates tension inside the mind. But over time, some learners begin realizing something important. Growth does not need to be rushed to become meaningful. And this realization changes everything emotionally. The first step in this final transformation is releasing the fear of slow progress. At first, many learners treat slowness like failure. If improvement is not dramatic, they feel discouraged. But peaceful learners slowly understand something deeper. Some of the strongest forms of growth happen quietly, without dramatic moments, without visible breakthroughs, just repeated familiarity slowly becoming natural over time. And this kind of growth often lasts longer. The second step is emotional peace with imperfection. Slow learners often stop demanding perfect performance constantly. They allow themselves to struggle naturally sometimes, to forget words, to misunderstand occasionally, to improve gradually. And this emotional gentleness creates freedom inside learning itself. The third step is trust in consistency instead of urgency. Modern culture celebrates intensity and speed, but languages are often learned through long emotional exposure. Thousands of small moments repeated over time, listening quietly, reading gently, speaking imperfectly, and eventually, these ordinary moments quietly create transformation. The fourth step is discovering the beauty inside repetition itself. At first, repetition may feel boring or insignificant, but repeated exposure slowly changes the emotional relationship with the language. Expressions become familiar, sounds become softer, understanding becomes more automatic, and one day, you suddenly realize something surprising. English no longer feels as distant as before. This change happened slowly enough that you barely noticed it while it was happening. Let me share a simple example. A learner studies English for years without dramatic results. Sometimes they feel discouraged. Sometimes they wonder if they are improving at all. But they continue gently, listening during quiet evenings, reading small articles, watching stories peacefully. And over time, English begins feeling emotionally lighter, not because of one powerful breakthrough, but because thousands of quiet experiences slowly change the brain. Another example. Two learners improve at very different speeds. The first learner becomes obsessed with fast fluency. They pressure themselves constantly, and eventually, they become emotionally exhausted. The second learner moves more slowly, but they remain emotionally connected to the process itself, curious, patient, gentle with themselves. And years later, their English feels deeply natural and emotionally comfortable. Why? Because peaceful learning created sustainable growth. The fifth step is emotional coexistence with the journey itself. Peaceful learners stop treating learning like a race that must end quickly. Instead, they begin living alongside the process naturally. And because of this, learning feels lighter emotionally. The sixth step is allowing confidence to grow quietly, not through pressure, not through comparison, but through repeated experiences of understanding and communication over time. This quiet confidence often becomes deeper and more stable. The seventh step is emotional trust in time itself. Slow learners begin trusting something important. The brain changes gradually through familiarity repeated over long periods. And because of this, they stop demanding immediate transformation constantly. This emotional trust creates peace. The eighth step is discovering that fluency is not only achievement, it is relationship. A relationship with language, with communication, with yourself. And relationships become stronger slowly through repeated connection over time. Another important idea is self-kindness. Peaceful learners often stop attacking themselves emotionally for every weakness. They allow themselves to grow imperfectly. And this gentleness creates emotional stability. Another key point is invisible progress. Some of the deepest forms of learning happen beneath conscious awareness for long periods. Until one day, something suddenly feels easier, lighter, more familiar. And this quiet transformation often comes from slow repetition over time. Another important idea is emotional sustainability. Fast motivation often disappears quickly, but peaceful learning connected to curiosity and emotional comfort can continue for many years naturally. And long-term consistency changes everything. Over time, something beautiful begins to happen. English stops feeling like a constant emotional battle. It becomes part of ordinary life quietly, naturally, peacefully. And in that moment, you realize something important. Learning slowly was never weakness. Sometimes, it was the very thing that allowed deeper understanding and emotional comfort to grow naturally. And this is the beauty of learning slowly. So if you remember one thing from this story, remember this. You do not need to rush your growth. Learn gently, trust quiet repetition, and allow familiarity to grow naturally over time. Because some of the most meaningful transformations in life happen slowly enough that we only understand their beauty after they have already changed us. Thank you for spending this time with the story. And as always, see you in the next story.